All right, hey everyone, and welcome to our study group for PP 5361, Theory and Management of Public Service Organizations. Today, we're going to dive into our required reading, which is Chapter 1 of the Diversity Bonus.
Our whole goal here is to really get to the heart of this chapter, so we're all on the same page and can see how these big ideas apply to what we're all studying, public service management. So let's just jump right in. So the book starts with this fantastic example, Abraham Lincoln. Think about it. If your job is to split rails, a pretty simple physical task, what do? You hire the strongest people you can find, right? Easy. The best team is just the sum of the best individuals. But, and this is the key, when Lincoln had to solve a wildly complex problem, like saving the entire Union, he did the exact opposite. He built a team of rivals, a cabinet full of people with totally different, often clashing ways of thinking. And this really sets up the book's central question. Is the best team always made up of the best individuals? The author argues that for the kind of complex work we do today, the answer is a big fat no.
Okay, so what kind of diversity are we even talking about here? This is absolutely crucial. The book calls it cognitive diversity. And this isn't just about identity, though our identities can definitely shape this. It's really about the differences in how people think. The different info they have, the mental models they use, and the problem-solving tools they bring to the table.
To make this less abstract, the author gives us this really simple but super powerful idea called the toolbox model. So let's use it to see exactly how these diversity bonuses actually get created.
All right, meet our players. We've got Anne, Barry, and Cam. In this little model, ability is just how many cognitive tools a person has in their toolbox. So Anne is our rock star. She's got an ability of 5. Barry's close behind with 4, and Cam has 3. Pretty straightforward.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Look what happens when we start teaming them up. If we pair our two best people, Anne and Barry, their combined toolbox has 6 unique tools. Okay, that's a bonus of 1 tool from Barry. But look what happens when we pair Barry with Cam, our person with the lowest individual ability. Their combined toolbox has 7 unique tools. Get that? The team of quote-unquote lesser individuals is actually collectively smarter. And that right there is the diversity bonus in action. Cam brings tools to the table that nobody else has.
So, of course, this leads to the big question. Why? Why does this happen? What are the specific conditions that let a person with technically less ability make a team smarter? Well, it all comes down to the nature of the problem you're trying to solve.
The book has a great analogy for this. Think of simple knowledge like a train ride. Everyone learns things in a fixed, linear order. So if you've been on the train longer, you know everything the person who got on after you knows, plus more. In that world, there's no real diversity bonus. But complex knowledge, that's like a trip to the zoo. There are tons of different paths you can take. Someone who has only seen 3 exhibits might have seen the gorillas, while someone who saw 5 exhibits completely missed them. So in a complex world, it's totally possible for someone to have less total knowledge, but still have unique, incredibly valuable knowledge.
Okay, so let's shift gears from the model to a real-world high-stakes competition that really puts this whole theory to the test, the famous Netflix prize. The setup was pretty simple. Netflix put up $1 million for any team that could build an algorithm that was just 10% better than their own at predicting what movies you'd like. Now, they had already poured a ton of resources into their own system, so believe me, this was a genuinely hard problem. So early on, this brilliant team from AT&T called Bellcore jumped out to a huge lead. They were by all measures the best team in the whole competition. But then they hit a wall. They realized they just couldn't get to that 10% goal by themselves. So what they do? They didn't go looking for people who were smarter than them. They were the smartest. Instead, they went looking for diversity. First, they merged with a team called Big Chaos, who were experts not at creating models, but at combining different models. Boom. That was the first diversity bonus. Then they added another team, Pragmatic Theory, who brought a completely different toolkit, insights into human behavior. Things like how your movie taste might change if you're watching alone versus on a date. And the result of mixing all these different approaches, the new super team, called Bellcore's Pragmatic Chaos, finally had a big enough collective toolbox to actually solve the problem. They smashed that 10% barrier and took home the $1 million prize.
This quote from Wired magazine just nails it. Their victory wasn't just some feel-good story about teamwork. No, it was a measurable, quantifiable bonus that came directly from mashing together different ways of thinking. So, this brings us to the most important part for us as public managers. When does this bonus actually happen? And, just as importantly, when does it not? Understanding these conditions is everything. First,
We got to toss out a really common but totally wrong analogy, the financial portfolio. You hear this all the time, that building a diverse team is like building a diverse stock portfolio. But that's not right at all. A stock portfolio is designed to reduce risk and give you the average return of its parts. A diversity bonus is not about averaging down. It's about creating a result that is fundamentally better than what even your best person could have done all by themselves.
This slide shows the difference perfectly. That portfolio on the left, it gets a 3% return, which is just the average of all its stocks. But now look at the problem-solving team on the right. It doesn't average its ideas. It can take the best idea, which has a value of +9, and actually combine it with other ideas to create a brand new solution worth +16. It's not about hedging your bets. It's about creating something new and way better.
So where do we find these bonuses? The book breaks work down into 4 categories. You don't get a diversity bonus for routine tasks, whether they're manual, like folding pizza boxes, or cognitive, like processing forms. Those tasks are just additive. 2 people do twice the work of 1. But where you see a massive, significant bonus is in cognitive, non-routine work. We're talking about research, strategy, policymaking, law, management. This is the heart of the knowledge economy, and it's exactly the kind of work we'll be doing in public service.
And listen, this isn't some small niche category of work. Just look at the data. Since the early 80s, routine jobs have seen basically 0 growth. So where have all the jobs been created? A staggering 32 million new jobs have popped up in the cognitive, non-routine sector. The entire modern economy is shifting toward the exact kind of work where cognitive diversity gives you the biggest advantage.
So let's end our study session with the big takeaway question for our careers. The old way of thinking was just to hire the best people based on some single resume metric. This chapter shows us that for the wicked complex problems we're going to face in public service, that's just not going to cut it. The real challenge for us is to think like Lincoln, to think like the winners of the Netflix Prize. How are we going to build teams that harness this diversity bonus to be not just talented, but truly, truly brilliant?